Thank you all for coming to watch. Just a little bit of intro about me. I'm Rachel. I'm a writer for Rouleur magazine. We're a magazine based in the UK. We publish 8 issues a year, all about cycling culture, from tech to gravel racing to pro road racing. We've also got a website and an app. So if anyone wants to know any more about Rouleur after this podcast, please feel free to come and chat to me. This is a live recording of the Rouleur Conversations podcast. We publish one every couple of weeks, so on your usual podcast platforms you'll be able to listen to this in the next few days. But yeah, without further ado, I will introduce my very special guests. We've got Rosa, Klöser and Josie, Millard, both of whom are racing the 200k Traka. How are you guys feeling? Josie, I'll start with you. We're here in Girona. How have the last few days been for you getting set up for the race?
Good, very good. I mean, travel was not ideal. Missed trains, things like that. But heading out on a little recce day before yesterday, lovely. I mean, sun's shining, Traka's always crazy. We're in Girona, it's good vibes. I think it's good vibes.
Good vibes, love that. Rosa, what about you?
Yeah, I'm super good. I'm super excited to be here. Can't wait. Wish race day was tomorrow, so let's fucking go.
Love that. Swearing already, 2 minutes in. No, but I think it's really interesting to have you guys both on this kind of podcast together, because you do both have very unique entries to gravel racing, I would say. You both kind of came to the sport a bit later. So maybe for those who don't know, maybe Rosa, you could start just by talking a little bit about your kind of journey into bike racing. How did it all begin for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think my journey was a bit special, for sure. I'm not this traditional cyclist that grew up in a family of cyclists and then, jumped on the bike with like 6 years old, but quite the opposite. I think the first time I ever jumped on the bike, I must have been like mid-20s, so probably like 25. So that must be like 3.5 years ago, and it was like in the midst of the Corona crisis, to be honest. Me living in Copenhagen, Denmark, lots of cyclists around, and one day, to be honest, my commuter's bike got stolen. And that day I decided I wanted to join the active, fresh lifestyle of the Copenhageners. So I decided to buy myself a road bike, and now we're here.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of how quickly you've progressed. And Josie, I mean, you've had also a very interesting journey. Your background is obviously in skateboarding. I think you were 2017 European Female Skateboarder of the Year, and now you're kind of on the gravel racing. How do you go from being a pro skateboarder to being a gravel racer?
Yeah, it's definitely an unusual background for, I suppose similar to you, Rosa. I didn't grow up in, cycling family. My main sport was skateboarding, and I had a lovely career in that, but basically I got injured after many years of wrecking my body, throwing myself downstairs, things like that. Loved it, but after a few years I had this progressive ankle injury over and over again, torn ligament, had the surgery, came back really strong, but during that process I fell in love with the gym. It was like my rehab to get myself back. Fell in love with the gym, started running, fell in love with that, started CrossFit, fell in love with that, because I suppose for me, I'd grown up only with skateboarding, and then suddenly I was like introduced to all these new sports, and I was like, oh, this is actually really sick, like totally fell in love all over again with these different sports. Anyway, then I started wild camping, and some of my friends were turning up to our campsites with their tents and things strapped to the bike, and I was like, do you know what, that was pretty sick, like I'd quite like to try this. So I bought a gravel bike in 2022, thinking, oh, I'm going to start bike packing. Never went bike packing, just started racing instead, because I loved it so much just as a sport. And it's just fun. It's nice to reignite that like competitive spirit in me after losing it a bit from an injury,
It's interesting that you chose gravel racing, and I guess it's similar for you, Rosa. This kind of discipline, it is a bit more inclusive and it is a bit more welcoming compared to sort of getting a road bike and trying to get into road racing. Josie, for you, why did it feel like gravel racing was kind of the right place for you to move into?
I think it's just a bit more sendy, isn't it? Yeah, a bit more sendy, and like super inclusive as well. I mean, it's quite funny for me because my first race, so dumb. Like, first race was a UCI race at the Gralloch. I had no idea what was going on. I'd like turned up in a crop t-shirt, like, and on the start line it was just so jokes, like everyone in their skin suits, and I was there just like crop t-shirt, like cargo bibs, like all these bags strapped to my bike, but I just absolutely loved it. And despite being very different from everyone else there, I still felt like I could just get involved. Like that to me is less scary than navigating, trying to get into a road race and road cycling where there's so many teams and it's different culture around it. Yeah.
And Rosa, what about you? Because I know you did do some road racing initially first as well, but obviously gravel's kind of where your career really took off. What was it for you about gravel that really kind of attracted you to the discipline?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you already brought up a really good point, and that's the inclusivity. For me, to be honest, I started road racing, or I did my first road race in 2022 in Denmark. It was amazing. Denmark has a great local racing scene. But that being said, it's a local racing scene. So while there's a lot of talented riders in Denmark, there's actually no single continental team in entire Denmark, which I always found surprising. And so I think it was like in 2022 when I was actually in terms of my PhD, I was in the United States, and I was joining this cycling club, and lots of people there had gravel bikes. My boyfriend just got into gravel racing, and he told me, hey, you know what, next year we should go to some gravel races, because there you can actually sign up and you can right away race against the best. And I'm quite known for a competitive spirit, so even if I'm quite new in something, I want to excel at it. For me that challenge was for sure a great one. So yeah, and of course I must say with gravel it's also something about the mental side of it. I think in gravel, something as important as your physical capabilities are your mental capabilities, and I feel like in gravel it's really important that you're always switched on, because there's always a corner, there's always a sharp rock, and I think that's a very interesting element that I like, and that makes it a bit special.
And I mean, we're talking about just entering races here, just getting on the start line, but both of you, I think, have progressed incredibly quickly in the sport. I mean, Josie, for you, I think you've spoken a lot on your Instagram about how working with a coach really started to make a difference for you. Can you just talk about those kind of steps that you made to go from just starting at the Gralloch, having no kind of idea what you were doing, to where you are now?
Yeah, 100%. I think the best thing I've done so far within cycling, without a doubt, has been getting with a coach. It just changed the whole game. I mean, for me especially, coming from skateboarding, which is a sport which is not really coached, at least for, my type of skateboarding, which was street skateboarding, and working a lot on video parts and things like that. We weren't coached as athletes as such, and so I had no idea how to train. Absolutely no idea. I just sort of smashed myself on the turbo sometimes. So just having the physical side sorted, but I think my coach, Paul Delaney, I'm just going to give out his name there, he's just so good because he's helped me so much with the mental side, like illness and things like that, just the adversity of getting through a gravel race to begin with, just all of it. It's just like you said, the mental side is just as much the physical side of things, and so having a coach who can take some of that load and kind of give you advice, it feels less lonely, because I think gravel can be a bit of a single pursuit, to just have a coach who can give you advice and, I don't know, change the game for me, for sure.
And Rosa, obviously you kind of got that academic background, like you spoke about doing your PhD. How important has that kind of numbers and element been to your racing? And I feel like you're quite into that side of things, into the kind of testing and the technical side.
For sure. I think if you would ask my partner, he would say, if the power meter doesn't work or my Karoo is not loaded, so my head unit, she's not going on a ride. It's for sure quite important for me. So I'm definitely a numbers girl, and I really like to track my data. But to be honest, on a gravel ride, I can also lose my head a little bit and then really enjoy the ride. and just explore. But yeah, I love the techie side of things, and I think that's also a part of, like you asked earlier, like this fast progression is like, yeah, okay, of course a lot of people ask me, so Rosa, you started cycling 3 years ago, like how is this possible that you're here now? But I think I'm a person, like when I start with something, I go into it quite deep from the start. So I think like after my second or third ride, I googled like what's the best way to keep your drivetrain in a good shape. So I started waxing my chain after 3 rides. And yeah, so, you know, I'm a bit crazy when it comes to these things. And then I went into like the entire nutrition topic really fastly. So I think, yeah, for me, it's really like, sometimes I could even say this is my little side PhD project, you know, getting on top of things in cycling. And I think that's also a really nice thing about gravel. I mean, on road we see it now more and more, and for instance, if you look at my setup that I had with the Canyon Tram team at Rouleur, we also had a very specific setup for the bike. But I think in gravel it's even more common that from race to race you change your setup. And I think that's so cool, that in some races you would opt maybe for a skinny, slick tire, but then in other races, such as like the Traka, you would go maybe for the biggest tire that fits your bike. And I think, you know, just being a bit techie about it is really fun.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think on the one side, some people are really involved in that stuff and love it, but also that can be one of the barriers for people. That can be one of the things that kind of puts people off getting involved. Josie, how have you found it? I mean, you're a bit newer to it than Rosa. Like, has there been any challenges for you to kind of, I guess cycling has all these unwritten rules, all this technical stuff. Has that been hard at all to kind of get your head around?
Well, yeah, I'm massively still learning. I just sort of YOLO it, to be honest. I think we all are, and I think especially, yeah, gravel's just so different, isn't it? Especially if you're a privateer, you kind of have to juggle a lot of things and manage yourself and find what works for you. But I think that's also just pretty exciting and quite fun.
Yeah, we were speaking a bit before about how there's kind of this strange like change in gravel now where some people are opting for team setups, some people are opting for their privateer setup like you guys are. Rosa, do you kind of have any insights on that? Like what are kind of the pros and cons, I suppose, of being in a team set up for a race like the Traka versus kind of doing it all yourself like you are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can compare it best from like the road versus the gravel side, right? I mean, to be honest, I think it's an absolute luxurious thing to have a team. I sometimes joke and say like I'm still getting used to the entire team setup on the road side. Like for instance, the first time I went on a training camp with Canyon SRAM, you know, you wake up in the morning, someone prepared your breakfast, you walk out the door, and there's this squeaky clean bike ready for you, and you basically jump on it. So you're really like taken care of, and like it's really like a huge staff and a team behind it that makes it possible for you to excel on the highest level. And I think that's amazing. And I think also it is needed, because if you look at, for instance, road cycling, it's really, really much a team sport. So it's really important that every single team member, performs on the highest level, right? Whereas in gravel, as you said, like there's the privateer, there's the team element. Yet I would say that the team element can't be compared to a road team. I think there are still mini privateers within a team structure. So I think everyone in the team is kind of like a semi-mechanic, then the other person is a semi-social media person. So I think they might have different roles and they complement each other, but it's still very much like self-made kind of situation. And I mean, in gravel, being a privateer, for me, I really enjoy it because that's where I get to live out my checky side. So I'm a little bit more flexible with specific setups, equipment, etc. But of course, it's a lot of time invest, like booking all the trips, making sure all the parts are there. Even though I have amazing sponsors and they provide me with great equipment, I have to, inform them what I need for what specific race, whereas in a team structure that's taken care of. So I think it really depends on your personality and also how much you see yourself maybe as like a project manager and how much you like that, whether you want to go down this privateer route. Yeah,
I mean, Josie, I remember you saying to me earlier, you were like, the logistics of doing your race calendar is one of the biggest jobs that you have. You were kind of saying like a team structure is quite attractive to you in gravel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm gunning for a team next, to be honest, because the admin, I love my sponsors to bits and they've been massively helpful. But the booking of the travel and everything like that is massive privilege to do it. But you know, to have that side of things sorted would free up so much brain space. Yeah, just to be able to race at the best, I think. And I see the footage of the road girlies, and I think, wow, man, like that's kind of sick, eh?
Yeah. Also, I think it's interesting to speak about how this team versus privateer setup impacts the race dynamic as well. I mean, that's something that's changing in gravel quite a lot. Rosa, from your perspective, like, have you seen more people working together, more teamwork in races, and what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point, because I think because the scene is so dynamic and gravel is so dynamic, these team structures are really loose. So actually, this year already at Santaval, one of the first races, I was racing, and then in the end I was in a breakaway with 2 riders on Specialized, but they weren't in the same team. I thought, but then they informed me that they were both riding a Specialized bike, so now they were team members against me. But that's fine. I think we have to comply with these things, and we have to, you know, adjust to these dynamics, and I think it makes it fun, you know, because you never know what's gonna happen, and you never know who's teammates now. So I think that's also a little bit of fun, and I'm there for it. And I think the cool thing with gravel is, especially on like courses like the Traka, is it's so challenging, and it's so challenging terrain that yes, of course, having a team does give you an advantage, but then in the end of the day, I mean, there's enough technical bits to make a difference.
And you mentioned earlier, I think I just really want to touch on this, that you rode Paris-Roubaix only a few weeks ago, and I spoke to you in the velodrome. You seem quite happy, but can you talk a little bit about that experience racing like one of the biggest cobble classics in the world compared to the gravel races that you've done and the kind of background that you have?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember sending a message afterwards to a friend of mine that is also a gravel racer, and I said like, oh my god, the first 20k of this race was 10 times worse than the gravel worlds. The gravel worlds felt like a social ride. Because the first 20k of Paris-Roubaix were carnage. I think it's a race that means a lot to a lot of individual riders, and because of its special character, with the cobbles, with it being so technical, I think it's a little bit of a survival race, right? So, I mean, of course, there's still team structures and teams working together and trying to get ahead into these sectors together as a team, but the reality of things is quite different. So it feels a little bit more like you're an individual, and it feels a little bit more like a gravel race compared to a normal road race, I would say, from my experience. I mean, I think it was a really great first experience. I also remember meeting you at the velodrome, and I think one of my first words or sentences was like, oh my god, I'm so happy I didn't crash, because this was the first time in a velodrome for me. So yeah, when I entered the velodrome in Roubaix, I for the first time was riding in a velodrome, and for me there's so many new things happening in each race that I'm still like super excited and super keen to learn and improve for sure.
Josie, I guess that's kind of similar for you with gravel. Like you've said, you're learning every single race and you haven't been doing it as long, but you did have a pretty full season last year on the gravel. Can you talk a bit about how that kind of went for you? I mean, were there any challenges on the way in that season that you can kind of pick out from any particular races?
Yeah, I mean, the whole season was full of ups and downs. Being my first proper season, I was expecting that anyway, but I suppose something that's maybe different from the road side of things, just the constant mechanicals. Like, you know, you really have to factor that in, and for me, doing this, the 200 kilometre, you know, most of my racing last year was like between 4 or 5 hours, so yeah, 200, I'm looking forward to seeing what that's like and how the pace differs and how much you have to account for feeding and things like that. It's very different for me. And again, I just feel like I'm constantly learning. Like,
yeah. Does it feel like a kind of nice for you to have a fresh challenge in a new sport, I guess, because you were doing skateboarding from a really young age? How has that been mentally for you to kind of go completely new into something that you've never really experienced before?
Oh, it's super exciting. Like with you, Rosa, like, as soon as I love something, I pour myself into it, and I am very competitive. So to have like a new catalyst for my obsessive personality is just like, it's super exciting.
Yeah. You said on your Instagram, I think, that your biggest goal was to qualify for the World Champs, which you did. How was riding the Gravel Worlds for you? How did you find that race?
It was sick. I mean, it was such a different vibe to any of the other gravel races I've done. It really felt like, well, I mean, I don't know what a classics race feels like, but it kind of had that vibe, you know, we're on cobbles and then a bit of road and a bit of gravel, and it was pretty sick. It was very unique. It was kind of different to the sort of course that I would usually say suits me best. I much prefer like a more technical, sort of sendy kind of vibe, but it was fun. Like, I loved being there. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, things like the Gravel World Championships, the UCI Gravel World Series, they're kind of the UCI's first like foray into the gravel world. And I think there's been some kind of controversy surrounding these races, for example, not having equal distances for men and women, which is something that gravel's really kind of set the bar for in the past. Rosa, do you have any kind of thoughts on that? I mean, I think there was a lot of discussion around whether that was fair or whether that was the right decision, especially in such a young sport like gravel, where we do have the potential to shape it how we want, right? What are your kind of thoughts with the UCI getting involved in the gravel scene?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've been actually in contact with the responsibles on these fronts, because I have pretty much the same opinion as you, because, I mean, it's the beauty of the sport. It's new, right? We're in the 21st century, so why shouldn't we kick it off right from the start in the right way? And I think the right way is to provide equal opportunities for men and women, and I think, honestly, this is something that I think is amazing to see in the gravel space when it comes to the privateers or to the individuals. I think there is, for instance, in the Gravel Earth series, equal highlight on women and men, and I think that's how it should be. And I mean, even when we go now back to road racing, if you look at the races, no one can tell me that the women racing isn't absolutely freaking exciting to watch. So why wouldn't you like if equal opportunities or live stream to women and men? And I think, for instance, the Gravel Earth series is really doing an amazing job at it, and I think the UCI definitely has to catch up. I think they are slowly catching up, and I think that they are going in the right direction, but I do think that they need a gentle push.
How have you found the kind of difference between racing in Europe at events like the Traka versus racing in the US? Obviously, you got your biggest win at Unbound Gravel, which is one of the biggest gravel races in the US. How do those two scenes differ?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Unbound Gravel, I must say, was probably like the calmest gravel race start that I have done to date, which I didn't expect. So maybe, yeah, the first 2-3 kilometers were a bit hectic, but then it kind of like settled down, because, you know, in the US the gravel roads, they're much wider, so it's much more like a road just with some gravel on top. So you know, the nervousness of the bunch isn't as high at the start, and it was actually quite nice because you had like the chance to get into the race, which is quite different from the Traka. And I know you just mentioned like 200k. I don't know how the pace will be, but I can assure you it will be full gas from the start.
That's exciting, yay.
I mean, Josie, you've kind of always been, by the sounds of it, you told me you did mountain biking, you've done skateboarding, now you're in gravel racing. You've always been attracted to these kind of extreme sports, and I guess sports that maybe historically we haven't seen as much female participation in. Do you have any kind of thoughts on like how we can make these places a more welcoming space for women?
Well, I think, I mean, as Rosa said, I think Gravel Earth series is doing a cracking job at it. I think something that's really important and that really, really bothered me a lot last year was, not having a separate start for the women, or the start being separated by, a matter of minutes, and then you've got, thousands of men roaring up behind you, and that needs to be over. That needs sorting out, because I think that's quite an intimidating thing. If you're racing for the first time and you think, oh, I'm racing with thousands or hundreds of men, it's just not a vibe. So I think that would be, it's a much needed change, is totally separate starts for women racing.
And if you were kind of speaking to someone like yourself who was quite new to gravel racing, what would your kind of advice be? Would you have any words of wisdom for them of like, how to approach this and feel like they can get involved?
Just send it. I mean, it's so much fun. just send it. And if you don't enjoy it, don't do it again. That's what I did, and I fell in love with it, so that's the only advice I can give.
And you've spoken a lot about how you're kind of still figuring out what you like you said, you're doing the 200k for the first time this year. Do you kind of have any idea about what courses are suiting you? I mean, Rosa's saying the US racing is kind of, I guess, maybe a bit less technical. You've got the kind of wide gravel roads. Do you want to try that out? Where do you think your strengths are going to lie?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely, skateboarding's given me that kind of mentality where I can throw myself at stuff. And for me, not having years and years of power in my legs for cycling, that's somewhat of an advantage. So I very much do like, a more technical course. I think for the mind as well, it's quite nice. Keeps it busy, single track and different terrain rather than just navigating the bunch in something very smooth. That's just what I prefer. I find it more fun and more engaging. And I definitely want to try a lot of the US stuff and the smoother stuff too, because I'm constantly learning. But for me, that's where it's at.
And Rosa, I mean, you've been to races all over the world now. You've you've been in the World Tour peloton as well. But we're at Traka now. What is it about this race that you think has made the popularity of the event grow so much? Like, in what ways is it unique compared to other events that you've been at?
Oh, there's so many things. Okay, let me start with the location first. I must say, Girona really for me is like gravel paradise in Europe. I mean, the trails that you find here, this is for me the definition of gravel, right? Like, alone if you look at the course, I think it's 85 to 90% gravel, and Klasmark or Gerard in general, like, he's known for making the most insane courses in all sense. Like, literally, like, the courses are beautiful, they're insane, they're magic, and I think honestly I'm 100% convinced that there will be so many emotions in every racer this weekend, from being overly joyous to seeing great landscape to being like, that guy must be insane that he's sending us down this path, so all the feels, and I mean, to be honest, if I can comment on your remark regarding separating the women and men races, I do agree with that, and I agree with it for sure for the elite races. So I would say, I think if you're like a serious full-time racer, I think there's no way that we should have the women and men start together. However, on the more experience, adventure side, maybe for what would be called the age groupers, or for people that just want to experience gravel racing, I think having this community feel and actually doing it together, men and women, can be something really nice and really special. Because I also know a lot of girls who ask me, Rosa, like, how would I sign up for a 200-kilometer race? I will never finish it by myself. But actually knowing that you're in a big bunch and that there's always someone around you will maybe give you this opportunity to be convinced to finish, and then maybe it's actually nice to get a little bit of draft on the flat, and if you're not racing for a result, I mean, and it's really for you to just finish, I think it can be great to have someone around us. And I mean, the reality of things is that at this moment, and I mean, I'm really trying to advocate it, but there is still more men than women in the sport, so why shouldn't we use our male counterpart to, get us excited for it, and make this first entry, and maybe we sign up for an age group event the first time, and then we get dip our toes into the sport slowly, and then maybe if we're feeling competitive, we can sign up for an elite race afterwards.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic, I think, trying to keep that balance between having that inclusivity, community feel at gravel events, but the reality is they are getting extremely serious on a pro level. From your perspective, Rosa, how do we, it's a hard question, I know, but looking at the future of gravel, how do we maintain both elements, do you think?
Yeah, I think, exactly how Traka or Klasmark or maybe even Unbound is doing it, so maybe offering elite starts for women and men, and then having an open category where everyone can join, and making it inclusive. Because to be honest, I think it's amazing, in gravel, and I can really compare it like to road. I mean, of course, there's also like a lot of great people that I've met like at road races, but usually you're really much with your team, so you don't have the time to really engage with people so much. However, like at these gravel events, I always have like someone coming up to me, like a friend, asking about my setup, what tires I'm using, what tires I can recommend, and I think it's actually quite nice, you know. And I'm still learning a lot of things. Like people are showing me these new base layers they're using. They're showing me, you know, what bottles they bought and that they're like, I don't know, even better. And you know, it's really cool to learn from someone. And I think that's a really nice thing about gravel, and I think therefore it's super, super important to have those pro field starts, but I think it's still equally important to also have the open category, so that everyone who does not need or feels the need to be overly competitive can race in an environment that is really inclusive, and I think that's the way to go.
And Josie, Rosa speaking a lot there about learning and how you're kind of every race you're figuring more and more stuff out. For you, like looking ahead to this season, what are some key things that you're looking to improve on to kind of make that next step up in your kind of gravel racing?
All of it. Yeah, all of it basically. And having a bit, do you know what, I think something that's really good for me this year is just having a little bit more support, and what, you know, whilst I'm not on a team, making sure I have people in the feed zones and things like that, because last year, you know, 95% of my racing I was just sort of, you know, I had everything on my back kind of like regardless. You know, I had my dad handing me a bottle in one of my UCI races, so just really upping it in that respect and having a bit more of a plan. Yes, I love to just sort of like go in, see, send it. That's what I always like to say, but have it just being a bit more organised with it, basically.
For an event like Traka, what is the preparation been like for you? I mean, have you got like a nutrition plan, a fueling plan? Is that something you've worked on? Because obviously that's a massive part of like long distance events like this.
Yes, somewhat. I mean, again, my coach is really good and he's helped me out massively with that side of things. But again, you know, it's a bit of an unknown distance for me. So I've got a loose plan, but at the same time, you know, I'm going to listen to myself and kind of see how that goes, really.
Rosa, you said earlier that you were kind of warning Josie that the start's going to be crazy. If you were going to give her some advice on kind of how to tackle a 200k race, what are your kind of words of wisdom?
Yeah, first I think you mentioned it yourself already, having the right support crew, and actually I had to laugh earlier because I saw some of my nice sponsors in the crew, and I think one of the things that I said first when I went with one of my first sponsors, MAP, last year, was that when I talked with them, I was like, okay guys, it's amazing, I want the kit and everything, but one thing you have to promise me, you have to hand a bottle to me at the Traka. And they kind of were like confused at first, and they were like, don't you have a support crew for this? And I was like, no, I'm really new to this field, and I don't have a huge, you know, support crew and many sponsors. And that was something that was really important to me. So I think making sure you have like a good support crew, someone that you can trust, that is there and will hand you a bottle, and hopefully already gave a bottle before in their life. That's always a good, or otherwise tested with them, you know, because you're going at full speed. So that's a piece of advice. And I mean, then again, of course, while I said like it will be full gas from the start, staying calm. Like, you know, in the end of the day, it's still 200 kilometers, and I can still promise you that you will overtake people in the last 20k because they faded, because they sent it too hard at the start. So yeah, staying calm and being focused. I think that's a good piece of advice.
Wise words from the champ. Thank you.
I mean, it's crazy to hear you say that there's literally so much to think about in these events. I almost feel like you don't really realise it till you speak to riders like yourself who are actually doing it. We're talking about fueling, we're talking about tech. Literally, there's a million things to think about. Josie, I'm interested to hear what the kind of comparison is to skateboarding. Like, are there any similarities between the two sports? And like, can you draw any kind of parallels between what you've done before and what you're doing now?
It's so different. Like, it's just so different. It's funny because I was saying to my friend the other day, it's hilarious because in skateboarding you don't really have to manage anything. You just skate. You know, there's nothing around nutrition or anything like this. So in that respect, very, very different. But again, I think something that's been kind of like a crossover is balance and sending. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're entering women's gravel racing at a really exciting time when the level, like we were speaking about earlier, the level at the moment is so high in the women's. Rosa, is that something you've noticed change in the last couple of years? Like I would say now we're looking at like so many different women who could potentially win, whereas before maybe there'd only be kind of 2 or 3 favourites. Have you noticed the kind of change in pace from within the racing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 100%. There's more and more women who do it or have the capabilities of also pursuing the sport full time. So that definitely sets the bar higher. The training becomes more professional each year. And of course, having again like a separate start that is just focused on women only changes the race dynamics again. So maybe like, you know, accelerating some people that might have not been at the top before. That's for sure. And yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think I looked at the start list for the 200 and I think we're around 70 pro elite women. I think that's great. That's a great field. And yeah, so I think it will for sure be exciting, and I think no one will get the crown without the fight.
I think a lot of that level has been brought up as well by the interest of brands and the interest of sponsors as well, and kind of how more and more brands are looking to get behind riders and invest in gravel racing as a sport, and that's a massive part of what you guys do, obviously looking for your own sponsors. Josie, how have you found that from your side? I guess a lot of it's social media presence as well. That's kind of a whole nother part to being a gravel racer, right?
Yeah, 100%. If you're going down the privateer route, yeah, for sure. I think I'm really quite fortunate in that I built somewhat of those skills of like, you know, communicating with brands and building, you know, be it very small, like a bit of a following and things like that. So when I approached brands within cycling, I kind of already had my foot in the door for like how we do this. And that, I mean, I'm just very lucky in that respect. But it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I think the admin, trying to get yourself out there and get deals with brands, because it's, like we say, it's busier and busier, and there's a lot of excitement around gravel at the minute.
Rosa, what about you? I mean, when you arrived earlier, you were saying you'd be at kind of sponsor things for a lot of the day. Is it ever hard to kind of balance those demands of what you're doing from, obviously the brands are supporting you, but also at the end of the day, your focus has to be being a professional athlete?
Yeah, I mean, first I want to comment on what Josie said. I think, first of all, you're not lucky, you're making your own luck, right? So I think you deserve where you are because you grew yourself the space, and I think that's really essential. But I think it's also, again, super exciting actually, like that we're here together today, because I think maybe you, as you like elaborated, had a really different approach. You already had like a kind of a big following, and with that you could kind of like leverage your own personality and get these sponsors and, you know, grow yourself in cycling. And for me it actually was the polar opposite. I think I had like, I don't know, I had a private account, I had like 400 or 500 followers. So when I started gravel racing, and I was honestly really lucky because I was in a small cycling community in Denmark that was luckily connected with a couple of brands, and then some of the brands really gave me a shot. They saw the potential in me, and they said like, we don't care how many followers you have, we do think that you have potential, and you can prove it to us. And I think that's amazing to see as well, and I know that this is probably a rarity and that not all brands see it like this, but that's why I'm super happy with the partners that I have. And for me, of course, like, yeah, my following definitely increased a lot after performing well, and especially after winning Unbound. And of course it helps me to, you know, to reach out to people more and more. But I actually truly enjoyed it, and I think most of my sponsors are also really respectful when it comes to racing and performance, and they know that for me, like, performance first, social media second. And that's my approach, and I think otherwise they wouldn't be my sponsor if they wouldn't see it the same way.
Yeah, Josie, I was going to ask you that. I mean, now you're forging your way in gravel racing. How important has it been to make sure that the brands you're working with kind of align with your goals and your values, and what goes into picking those partners that are kind of right for you? Because I think it is quite a personal thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, who have you got? Oh, you've got Sport4 you're working with, and I think you said you've found that they were quite like a good partner in that they're flying you out to Italy, making you custom kit. How's it been working with them?
Yeah, it's been wicked. I mean, I suppose every sponsor that I have reached out to or have reached out to me, and I've felt that they just align with my personality and my goals. And I suppose that's it really. I'm just really grateful to all of them, to be honest. And yeah, I wouldn't partner with anyone I didn't think aligned with myself and my personality. So I'm just grateful to have their backing, really.
And talking of like goals and the future, what are your goals in gravel racing? I mean, where do you see in the kind of dream world what do you want this to all turn into for you?
I want to be like Rosa.
Are there any kind of bucket list races that you really want to try, or you think that's like the one that really sticks out to you that you want to win?
I'm not sure about one particular event, but I'm very much looking forward to delving into kind of the US side of things. I'm fortunate my mum is from the States, so it's very easy for me to travel over there. I think that's just a whole new world to explore, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to dipping my foot in there and seeing what the vibes are over that way.
You just got to get your driver's license first.
Oh my goodness me.
Yeah. You can tell that story if you want.
Yeah, well, I'm stuck on the bloody driving test waiting list at the ripe age of 26. Already bought my van, plan to race all around Europe in it, and can't drive the bloody thing, so rest in peace me.
So hopefully you'll get to the top of that list soon.
Please. Anyone out there who can sort me out, please do it.
She needs a driving test. And Rosa, for you, I mean, you've achieved so much now. What are your goals? I mean, where do you see is left for you to go in the sport?
I think there's still so many great opportunities and races that I would like to do, and I mean the next thing is just coming up in 2 days, right? So I definitely want to compete at the very top in the biggest and gnarliest gravel and road races. So I'm open for a couple of wins. So yeah.
And what about balancing those road ambitions and gravel ambitions? How's that been so far? And is there one that kind of ranks above the other for you? Obviously, you're on the road with Canyon SRAM and you're kind of doing your own gravel thing. How do you balance those ambitions?
I mean, I think honestly, it's been great. Of course, it's always like this adjustment process, and this is my first season ever. So of course we have to navigate like the different demands. But I mean, the nice thing about being kind of part of both worlds is that, like in gravel racing, as of now at least, I'm predominantly racing for myself as an individual, right? So if I suck at a gravel race, I suck, then it's really me. And, in a team environment, it's really actually nice to also contribute to your team's success, right? And to help your teammates, so to be a part of, something bigger. So I think that's really nice. And I think I'm learning so much from my teammates about like being strategic, about being smart in races. So I really like combining it.
Well, on that note, I think we've got some, luckily we're kind of coming to the end anyway, but we definitely have some interference, so I think we can wrap it up. But thank you guys so much for chatting and for your time, and thanks everyone for listening to us. That'll do. Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.